I'm gonna try to do my very first cooking video finally. I'm going to make roast, which is something that I really like. If it were up to me, I would eat it probably once a week. We're gonna see how this goes. I'm trying to figure out how to put the camera so we can see everything and whatever. But anyways, here we go. This is my first cooking video. All right, so the only thing that might be needed for this recipe that you may not have in your kitchen already is one of these cast iron enamel coated Le Creuset type oven things. I think they're called like Dutch ovens. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. I've tried making this in other vessels. Didn't seem to work as well. I think this is important to put it into one of these. But, you know, if you don't have it, try just a normal pot that can go in the oven with a lid that's also oven safe. All right, so these are all the ingredients that are needed to go into the dish. There is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ingredients that go into it. If you count the oil, then it makes an 8th. So what you need is 1.5 pounds of red potatoes scrubbed. They'll need to be sliced, but we won't do that until later. 1 pound of carrots peeled, 1 medium to large yellow onion cut into very large strips, as you can see, pretty big. 2.5 to 3 pounds of chuck roast. You'll need 1 packet of this Lipton French onion dip mix stuff. You'll need a tablespoon of beef base. I highly recommend you use good quality beef base. This is refrigerated. It's very dark. As you can see, I'm almost out of it. I bought this from GFS. It's only like $5 or something, and this makes the most delicious beef broth that you can imagine, so I use it for lots of other things. You can use just beef bouillon if you want, but trust me, this makes a huge difference. And then I used minced garlic. You can use fresh garlic if you want, but I don't really like to deal with the fact that garlic goes bad so quickly. I use it fairly rarely, so I use this. Okay, first thing you need to do, preheat your oven for 350 degrees while we start assembling this. This pot is really easy to clean. However, I still do spray it, so I'm gonna use this spray real quick. I'm gonna give it a nice little spray. Probably doesn't need it, to be honest, but I don't want to take a chance. I've always used it, so I'm just going to continue doing that. Next, you put in the roast. I don't want to touch it and cross-contaminate, so I'm going to use this fork to move it over there. All right, cool. Thrown in there. Okay, so now we're going to use this beef-based stuff. I generally use about a tablespoon, just a regular spoon. I just eyeball this, but it's about a tablespoon that I add. I'm going to use up the whole rest of this container. This is going to be it for me for this container. So I'm gonna have to go buy more. And like I said, I buy this at GFS, Gordon Food Service, and it's about $5, give or take. I haven't bought it in so long, I actually don't know if it still is. Now I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna try, and the key word here is try, to smear it on the top of the meat. It's not going to want to do it. It's not gonna wanna stick. It's a pain, but that's what I always do. So I'm gonna get off the spoon, get as many chunks as I can. Now I will warn you, this stuff is crazy salty. So if you're thinking about salting this, I suggest you try it first. I love salt, and this is salt enough for me. So don't salt this as long as you're using this particular beef stuff. If for whatever reason you decide to use like regular beef base, you might want to add salt to this dish. I really don't know because I don't make it that way anymore. I used to add salt to this, but I also didn't use the beef base. I think it makes a huge difference if you make it though now. All right, so I've gotten as much of this off as I can, which is to say not all of it, but close enough. All right, next thing you add is this Lipton mix stuff. So this is French onion dip, and it very much tastes like French onions. So just take it, it's like a powder with like dehydrated onions in it, and just sprinkle it and cover the top of the meat with it. Boop, 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 boom, like that. All right, next we put on the carrots. So the carrots are actually physically touching the meat and getting, like, you know, absorbing the flavors of all of the mixes we just added, or the onion mix we just added. And then last, we're gonna put on the onions. And now here's the thing with the onions. When you're done with this dish, they're just gonna disintegrate. You're not even gonna see them anymore. So Don't worry about how you cut them or anything. You're not even gonna know they were there. Okay, and then lastly, I take about a teaspoon of this garlic, which is the equivalent of 4 garlic cloves if you're gonna do fresh. I'm just gonna eyeball this, but it's about a teaspoon, and I just kind of sprinkle it over the top. And as this cooks, it will rehydrate those, and it will turn into like little teeny tiny chunks of garlic in there. And they will pretty much disappear too by the end. All right, we're gonna put the lid on, throw it in the oven, and we're going to bake this now for 2 hours without touching it. Okay, so the roast has been in the oven for 2 hours now. I scrubbed the red potatoes and I sliced them. They're, you know, I don't know, about maybe 1 inch by 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, something like that, the chunks. I try to make everything so it's bite-sized. That's what I go for. So what we wanna do is open this up, which looks delicious. Smells delicious. And we want to take and dump the potatoes in. I found it easier to do it this way. Oh, I missed one. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. This is hot, so I'm trying not to touch it. And then we want to find the meat, and we want to stab it and pull it so it's on the top and submerge all the other stuff in the juices that have accumulated on the bottom of the pan. And then take the meat so it's sitting on top of everything else. What this is gonna do is, while the meat has been cooking in there, it's kind of like been boiling in its own juices, which tastes delicious, obviously. But if you let it cook that way the entire time, it tastes kind of like boiled meat. Putting it on the top like this actually dries it out a little bit, but in a good way, so it's still very juicy on the inside, but it doesn't taste boiled. All right, now that we've done that, we're gonna put it back in the oven for at least 45 minutes. All right, it's been 45 minutes, so I'm gonna check on it. It might not be ready yet, but if it is, then we can move on. Basically, what we're gonna be looking for here is that the potatoes are soft and that the meat is kind of falling apart. You don't want it to be like really falling apart. At that point, it's too long. But I'm just gonna take a fork and pierce the potatoes. Yeah, they're like super soft. And then the meat, yep. I don't know if you can see this, but simply stabbing it and turning it, the meat's like falling apart. So this is perfect. Now I'm going to slice it and then add everything back together and stir. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with that part. I'll come right back. All right, so I changed my mind. I am gonna bore you with this. I forgot a couple things, like for instance, how to trim this the proper way. And this is another thing that, you know, is like personal preference, but this is the way I like to do it. So you can see the grain of the meat is like running this way. Think of it like wood. You wanna be cutting against that grain. So like to separate this, which I don't even really have to try very hard, to cut this part here with the grain running this way, I wanna cut like this. Using a really sharp knife helps tremendously, but that piece there, you can see how the grain goes that way and it's not stringy looking. That's the way you want to cut this. Also, because this is a chuck roast, you can see there's lots of fat all through it. So, you know, you might want to just take some of that fat off. Most of it has rendered down, so you're not going to have to worry about too much. Like here's a little chunk, tiny bit right there. But that's about the biggest single chunk you're going to find. That's about it though. All right, so I've chopped this up. I tried to make the pieces basically like bite size. And then over here, that's all the big chunks of fat I got from the whole thing. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of fat mixed in with this, but that's not a big deal. Just, you know, the big gigantic, like, you know, they're gonna be in your mouth and you're gonna feel it kind of chunks, you wanna get rid of those. I'm gonna take all of this now, don't wanna touch that and burn myself, and just dump it in to here. Boom. Boom, boom, like that. All right. So now that I've done that, I'm just gonna get a spoon and I'm gonna mix everything together. And it's just gonna be served like this. Like everything will just be spooned onto a plate. Nothing's fancy, nothing's pretty, but it tastes delicious. And after you're done with this, you just put it in like little containers, put it in the microwave for a couple minutes and it's perfect. You don't have to do anything special with it. The carrots broke up into pieces like you can see, and that's it. That's the recipe. Okay, so that was it. I hope you guys like it. There's, obviously a couple steps to it, but it's super simple, super tasty, and cannot recommend it enough. It even tastes better the next day warmed up, so hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.